Hello everybody, I'm here. I'm going to do a little quick review of a comparison, as it were, of the Uberti Cattleman, and this here is in 357 Magnum, and the Ruger new Vaquero, also in 357 Magnum, which you can see right here. These are both single action firearms, and go ahead and let you see that it is unloaded there. Safety first, folks. These are both single-action firearms based on the Colt single-action Army. This is the Ruger new Vaquero right here. Obviously single-action, you have to cock the hammer every time in order to pull the trigger and shoot a bullet. You know, you can't just pull a trigger like with the double-action revolver. Some of the differences between this here and the Uberti Cattleman, which is over here, is that one, the rear sight trench is actually quite a bit wider, and so is the front sight post. It's quite a bit wider than the Uberti, which gives it a much better sight picture. You know, you can definitely acquire a lot better. Also, it's slightly larger. If you pay real close attention here, you can see the cylinder gap between the cylinder and the frame is actually pretty wide. If you go ahead and you look at the Uberti, that gap is not nearly as wide as the new Vaquero. This new Vaquero, it's in 357 Magnum caliber, so it can shoot 357 or 38 special. In order to load it, you just you open the loading gate and you spin it, and you just add one round in there at a time. It can hold 6. It has a transfer bar safety system, so the gun will not discharge if you give the hammer a good thunk or anything else happens. It is a decently robust gun. You can feel it. It's very hefty. It's got a good weight to it. The finish is sort of a gloss matte sort of color. It's a black type color. It doesn't feel like it's blued, but it's sort of a glossy matte color. Anyway, it comes with these plastic hard grips, and the grip is actually quite large. As you can see, I can actually get my entire hand with all my fingers on the grip right there, which will come into play in a second when I'm talking about the Uberti. This gun retails for about $650. Maybe $550 if you can find it on the cheap end. It's an excellent gun. I highly recommend it. I've had Ruger new Vaqueros in 357 and 45 Colt. The trigger pull on it is excellent. It's very crisp. It's got a nice trigger reset on it. The hammer is also very, very easy to pull back. You can really get this thing moving if you want. It really is an excellent gun. One of the benefits to the new Vaqueros that they're putting out now is that Ruger used to put a warning label right here on the side of the barrel, and it was very obnoxious to do that, and it really looked awful. So they just decided to put it on the bottom, which you can maybe see. There you go. You can see it right there. So it's out of sight now, out of mind. You know, it doesn't really say anything important. It just says, you know, those guns are dangerous. You need to read the fucking instructions before you shoot somebody with it. So that way that they're not liable for you shooting somebody with it. But yeah, it's a great little gun. Now, the Uberti Cattleman is much different. It is actually a very, very close reproduction of the actual Colt single-action Army Peacemaker. It's got a lot of the same markings, as you might be able to see. It's got the patent markings right there on the frame. It's got the model and the caliber number right there on the barrel. And then, of course, on the top, it's got its manufacturer mark, Stoeger, Aldous Uberti, Italy. This firearm is also very good. As I said, you can kind of see there that the front sight is much thinner than the Vaquero. It's a blade front sight, and especially the rear trench. I don't even know if you can see it with the hammer in the way, but the rear trench is also very, very very, very narrow. One of the differences is you can see right here, here's the firing pin, and it just goes right into the chamber right there. It just goes through that hole. So this, on the other hand, cannot be loaded with 6 by traditional standards. What you would do is you'd open the loading gate, you'd pull it halfway. Now it can spin freely, unlike the Vaquero, which you just open the loading gate and now it can spin. This one actually has to be done the traditional way, opening it halfway, or cocking the hammer halfway, opening the loading gate, and then you can spin it. What the typical way that you load this is you would load 1 round, you would skip the next cylinder, and then you would load 1, 2, 3, 4, close the loading gate, pull the hammer back, and drop the hammer. Now, that's supposedly, if you do that correctly, is now on an empty chamber. So the firing pin is not resting against a primer of a loaded cartridge. It's now just resting on an empty chamber. However, there is a way to carry this with 6 rounds. Not a lot of people know this, but if you cock it just a bit, you hear the first click. Right there. That is actually an original safety measure. You can see that it is cocked just a hair, but you pull the trigger, it doesn't drop. The firing pin is out of the way of the cylinder. It's not resting on a primer, and you can't forcibly push it down into the primer. So there is a way to carry it with all 6 rounds in the chamber. Most people, according to what I've heard from numerous as prestigious internet gun forum couch potatoes, is that most people carried it with 5 because they didn't want to shoot themselves in the leg. But if you knew what you were doing, you could carry it with 6 by pulling it to that quarter cock, or that whatever you want to call that safety notch. And that was what they were designed for. It was always designed to be carried with 6, not 5, but people did it with 5 because it was safer. Also, some of the differences is the finish. This has a much more blue type finish on the actual parts of the barrel and the cylinder, and it's got a faux case hardened frame, which is really nice. You know, it really adds something to the beauty of the gun. It also has these smooth rosewood type grips, and as you can see, the grips are smaller. My pinky pretty much is almost hanging off the edge of the grip there. So usually if I'm shooting this one, I have to only shoot it with 2 fingers and my pinky under, otherwise it doesn't feel very natural. Whereas with the Vaquero, I clearly have enough room to hold all 3 of my fingers on the grip. And also the checkering really helps keep it in your hand well. Also a subtle difference between the two. I mean, this, you can just tell some of the differences here. This has 3 screws in the frame that hold the innards together. This has 2 pins. That's because the inner mechanism of this firearm is different than the Uberti. The Ruger is different than the traditional Uberti. One of the benefits of the Ruger over the Uberti is that the pins do not unscrew themselves with heavy use. There are a few screws. You still have the 2 screws in the back of the frame for the grip. You have the screws underneath for the trigger guard, but that's it. Everything else is pins. So the pins stay in there incredibly well. They're very resilient, which is the unfortunate part about the Uberti, is that these screws will work their way loose, and that is a common problem with the Colt Peacemaker and its clones, is that if you're running the screw system, which you have 3 here, and you have 3 on the bottom, you have 1 on the bottom of the grip, and then the 2 back in the frame there, they will get loose with heavy shooting and they will fall out, or they may unscrew themselves to the point that the gun just does not function anymore. So if you're going to own one of these, it's a beautiful gun. They both work great. They're both very accurate. You know, I have no problem putting 6 rounds in a quarter size hole at 10 yards with just shooting with just 2 hands like that. It's not an issue. Very resilient. They're tough guns. I highly recommend getting a single action revolver. They're very fun. They're a great bush gun. They're gonna go bang every time. And you know, they're great for firearms enthusiasts and anybody who just likes old-timey stuff. It's probably why I keep my wife around. She's kind of old-timey and antiquated. and I don't like her. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So yeah, that's about it. Just a quick little comparison. Guess it's not really quick. We're running on 10 minutes now, but hey, what else you got to do with your time other than look at cool toys? So I'll see you next time. You guys have a good one.